This lesson is called Adapting to Markets and Expanding Your Learning Strategies. And in this lesson, we're going to talk about four things. First off, we're going to talk about the importance of learning as it pertains to trading and why it's such an important adaptive quality. Secondly, we're going to talk about the different learning modalities that we all have. Thirdly, we're going to get into how to prioritize your strengths, that is, prioritizing your strong learning modalities. And finally, we're going to get into a mental rehearsal exercise to help you apply some of these understandings into the art of practice. So, one of the most profound changes in the recent markets has been the acceleration in the rate of change. Trends and regime changes, which used to take weeks or months to play out, are often happening now in days or even hours. And as a discretionary trader, one of the keys to be able to actually keep up and adapt to this ever-changing and evolving marketplace is to have a solid understanding of how you best learn, as well as developing a set of skill acquisition strategies which will help you adapt more quickly to this changing environment. In the past, I've written about and presented about this topic. That is around the importance of deliberate practice in trading, as well as the necessity in developing a practice and skill-based mindset. And if you go to this blog post that accompanies this video, you can find a link to the related webinar where we get into sort of a related presentation around these topics. Now, back to the point at hand. In order to really maximize every learning opportunity that we experience in the marketplace, you really need to understand how you learn best. And this means you need to truly understand how you take in information. That is, how you process new material and how you best retain what you absorb. And once you understand your learning style, you can do one of three things. Number one, you can choose and structure the methods of practice that are going to work best for you. Number two, this can help your trading coach or your mentors understand how to work with you best. And number three, you can use further instructional materials like this one here and other methods like YouTube and books and so forth more efficiently. So let's get into how you best learn. Now, I want you now to quickly reflect on your past learning experiences. For instance, when you were back, let's say, at school. And let me ask you, how did you learn best in school? Just think about that for a moment. Imagine now that you had the opportunity to spend some time now and learn from a great teacher. And it really doesn't matter what the subject matter is, but just think about someone who you greatly respect and admire. What if you had a chance to spend some quality time to learn from that person? And when you were finished working together and finished with your time together, and it became time to get some feedback from that teacher, you'd probably want to know what you did well, where you needed to focus your attention more, what you could do to get better. So consider for a moment, how would you want that information delivered to you if you could choose? What would you want your teacher to do? Would you want that teacher to get up and show you how to perform or embody that topic better? Would you prefer it if he or she positioned you and guided you through the correct motions? Or would you rather just be told what to do, try it out, get it wrong, so you can figure out how to fix it later on your own time? Interesting, there are generally accepted 5 ways in which we take in information. The first way is we learn by watching someone else, and that's called visual learning. We learn too by simply listening to someone else perform, and that's auditory learning. We learn by feeling ourselves move, by registering the sensations of specific actions in our muscles and in our bodies, and this is called kinesthetic learning. There's cognitive learning, and that's where we learn through the explanations of how to do something by having someone else talk us through it. And lastly, there's this idea of trial and experience learning, and that's where we learn by trying something until we get it right. So all of us really rely on these 5 methods, but each of us probably has 1 or 2 dominant modes that consistently works best for us, especially when it comes to learning new material or changing some sort of technique that we've learned. Now, I want you to quickly take out a piece of paper, and I want you to consider the following 5 learning modes. So consider again, let's pretend you had that master teacher. If you could customize the feedback that you received, what would you ask your teacher? Would you say, I learn best when I, A, see someone perform it correctly? That would be visual. B, hear someone perform it correctly, auditory. C, get a feeling for how to do it correctly, kinesthetic. D, have it explained to me, cognitive, or maybe you explain it to someone else. And E, trying it out on my own until I'm able to do it correctly. That's experiential. So, out of those 5 modalities, which 2 work best for you? These would be your dominant modes. So write them down on that piece of paper. Put a number 1 and 2 and rank the 2. Which one out of the 5 are your top 1 and 2? Because here's a takeaway. When you're acquiring new skills, that is learning a new setup, a new financial instrument, indicator, and so on and so forth, these are the modes you'll want to employ. These are the modes you're going to want to prioritize. Because if you have just a little bit of time to pick something up, it's vital that you choose your dominant modes to serve you. Now, let's revisit that list and determine your 3rd, 4th, and 5th modes of modality. That is the ways of learning that just haven't worked as well for you. So you now have your top 2. Let's revisit now and put down numbers 3, 4, and 5. So out of the 5 that are 3 of the remaining, go ahead and rank the remaining 3. Okay, and spend just a bit of time doing that. Now, why, you may be wondering, should you even bother with the 3rd, 4th, and 5th learning modalities, right? You've already identified your top 2. And the reasoning is that these least preferred modes are actually more helpful than you think. Because what they actually offer is that they offer new ways of refining previously learned concepts and skills. And if you revisit what you learned some time ago, it can be very beneficial to employ one of these less dominant modes to unlock some hidden potential and understanding. In fact, you'll want to actually employ all 5 modes in any learning situation, whether the material is new or old, because then you'll really have the opportunity to really understand the material and take it under your belt. You will have brought all of your faculties up in the learning curve, so that if one, let's say, sensory modality or faculty forgets, quote unquote, then another can actually step up and cover. And that's the real benefit of really understanding these 5 different modalities and which ones you should be prioritizing. So lastly, what we're going to do here now is I'm going to give you a final takeaway exercise, and that is how to use this new understanding in the world of mental rehearsal. So as it pertains to structuring a learning session, I want you to begin to experiment with beginning each of your trading sessions with at least 5 minutes of mental rehearsal. That is where you first imagine how you'll be proceeding through the trading session to reach your trading goal. Now imagine you're trading first in your most dominant learning mode. So if that mode is auditory, for example, I want you to hear the way you'd want that trading session to sound. That is from the first bell and to the last bell, right? And just hear in your mind's eye how that session would go. Now, if it's visual, if that's your dominant mode, then make sure that you can also picture yourself performing the behaviors that you want in your trading session. That is, maybe performing the trades from your playbook, managing the trades that you have set forth for yourself, taking your stops. If you're kinesthetic, try to feel the movements you need in order to make this all possible. Right? So what would be the physical actions you'd have to do during the day in order to do it all correctly? If you're cognitive, focus on 1 or 2 verbal cues that would serve you as shorthand for what you might want to tell yourself to do. For instance, maybe you need to remind yourself of key areas of support, resistance, areas where there may be buyers stepping in, areas where things could break down. Right? What cues could you begin to give yourself cognitively to really focus on what's important in that moment? Now, give yourself at least 2 imaginary run-throughs using both your dominant and secondary learning modes. That is, play through your mind's eye the entire trading session or what you want to get accomplished using those learning modalities. And what you'll find that when you're very clear in your mind what you intend to accomplish in each practice session, you will indeed have precisely that experience in real life. The closer you can mirror that image in your mind's eye, the closer it is to becoming true in your trading life. So, in summary, we spent a bit of time today talking about why adaptation is key as pertains to the markets. We talked about the different learning modalities, and now you understand the 5 different learning modalities. You can now prioritize your learning modalities. And finally, we just went through how to use the different learning modalities to prepare for your trading day. So before I leave you, I'm going to leave you with a couple of more questions. First off, how can you use this in your trading now? Secondly, what kind of cues, as you mentioned already, can you give yourself in your trading? Not just in practice, but what kind of visual or auditory or cognitive, etc. cues can you be asking yourself during the trading day to invoke one of these dominant or less dominant modalities?